I have an idea. How about we talk about human genetics and population and dispersion? And we will see that the biblical narrative is true and the evolutionary claim that everybody came out of Africa is not true, that it's false. Okay? And the point being that the Bible is true. Whoever calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Be saved. Will be saved. Okay, so let's do some studies. Um, I had said earlier that everybody is represented in the Middle East. All the different people are represented in the Middle East, and they spread out from there. They went to different places. They went from there to Africa. They went from there to Europe. They went to China, Mongolia, and the islands, Pacific Islands, and such, and Americas. Different people went different directions, different ways. And you can see that when you look at the chart on genetics. And so I have some charts here to show to demonstrate that um, example. Now, first we have to explain that there's different kinds of DNA. There's the Y chromosome DNA, which is the male line. So you have an identifier in your DNA as to all of your father's ancestries, your father's ancestry, where it came from, where it originated from. And you also have autosomal DNA, which is how you are um, connected to other people, or, or basically that you have segments of DNA in you that other people have in them. So all of your cousins have segments of DNA in them that you have in you, and they're the only way that you can connect your cousins with you is through your ancestors. In other words, I just kind of stumbled on the fact that, hey, Doc, what's up? I'm talking about genetics. I'm doing well, thank you. I hope you're doing well too. Doc is a nice atheist. He's some kind of a biologist or something, and so um, so yeah, the autosomal DNA is basically segments that your cousins have that share in common with you through your common ancestor. So that let's say that you have a grandfather. I could show this on my thing, but I would dock myself if I did. But I'm talking about Y chromosomes, and if let's say you have a grandfather and your cousins are a let's say it's a great 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 grandfather, and your cousins are have segments of the same DNA that you have, only their great 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 grandfather is not your great great grandfather, but it's your great great grandfather's brother. That's okay, Doc. You stay as long as you like it. um, so, so the only connection between you and your cousins is through the father of your great 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 grandfather, because their line goes through the brother or your great great uncle, so that it basically proves who your common ancestor is. So, in other words, your great 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 grandfather could have two or three or four or five brothers, all of which are verified through your cousin's autosomal DNA, because everybody's taking an autosomal DNA. I mean, not even everybody, but all you need is a few people. And people from each line is verifying who who your common ancestor is. And so it's really pretty neat because like I hit a brick wall trying to find my ancestors. I went back so far and I couldn't get through. Don't want to be harsh, Mel. You're actually pretty accurate so far. Okay, yeah. So I couldn't get through this brick wall, and so I did a Y chromosome test to try to see if I could get through the brick wall to find my great great grandfather. This one guy. How you doing? So, but that didn't really pan out. I mean, I did find some, and I just recently found one that is a close match to me. In other words, we humans have different numbers of copies of the same information. So when those different numbers of copies of the same information match, then you know it's a close ancestor, a close relative in the Y chromosome. So, but that's not how I discovered. That's not how I got through the brick wall when I was trying to find my ancestors. So I can say the first name, I can't say the last name. So I was stuck at George, and I was trying to get to Benjamin, and I couldn't get to Benjamin, except that all of a sudden these autosomal DNA confirmations from my cousin were started showing up, and they were all related, or their great 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 grandfathers were my great 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 uncle. So their one was related to like a David, the other one is related to an Elijah, the other one's related to somebody else, a Daniel maybe, or somebody. I mean, through different generations. But so then they started showing up with all these confirmations. They have segments of my DNA in them, and the only connection they have with me is through the father of their ancestor, who is whose father, in other words, whose father of the great 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 grandfather we share in common. But they basically prove that I'm related to the Benjamin I was trying to relate to, because they're all descended from the uncles of my George. I mean, the brothers of my George, which are my great uncles. So that verifies without a doubt, and it verifies both, not only the great great grandfather, but also the great great grandmother too. So there's no doubt as to who you're descended from, whether because it'll show up. Your cousins will show up and prove um, whether or not you were descended from those people, because the cousins will be descended from your great uncles, and they share DNA in common with you. And so the only way to get that DNA, the only way they got the same DNA as you, is through the common ancestor, which would be the great great grandfather, great 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 grandfather, which would be the George or the Amos or the John or whoever it was that you're trying to confirm. So I'm confirmed. I was able to confirm my ancestry of my family all the way back to the 1700s, the early 1700s. So that's and then from there they have a genealogy that goes all the way back to England or Scotland or wherever it's from, and there you're connected to all the kings and all the royal line and all that stuff. So it's really an interesting study, all the different populations. So what I wanted to get into was this map of where the ark landed, and we have representation of all the different people groups. I'm going to start out with the mitochondrial, because the mitochondrial really, I don't I don't know much. I haven't studied in depth the mitochondrial, but I know just a little bit about it, and we'll look at the pie chart and see how the dispersion is. Oh, okay. This is the mitochondria. Remember, there's different kinds of DNA. There's a Y chromosome, which I was talking about. There's the autosomal DNA, which I was talking about, and this is the mitochondrial DNA. Okay, so we can see in the Middle East, Near East, Far East, whatever. Right here is where the ark landed. I don't know what that's doing. So right there is where the ark landed. Right in here is where the ark landed, and you can see there's a high representation of all the mitochondrial DNA women, because this represents the women, and we can see these went to Africa. I don't even know what's going on. I don't know why people are calling me from different places. I don't even know of it. Anyway, try to ignore that noise. So, and in the case if you're wondering, I just got the iPhone 11. That's what's making that noise. Um, so this blue right here, this is my mtDNA. It's a H. It's an HG3. So this blue. So I'm European, and this HG3 is widely represented here. And so we got two possibilities. Since the Japhethites went north, it could either be a Japhethite, the wife of Japheth, or the uh, the Israelites also went north. So it could be the wife of a Shemite, because it's represented here. See, it's represented here quite a bit, and it goes northwest. It doesn't really go northeast that much. And the Japhethites, they went northwest and northeast. But see, the only other alternative, they see what this purple is. This purple is BA, an A. So this A might be, I got to study more up on it. It might be the wife of Shem. But I thought I saw before that the H was Semite, was a Semite wife. In other, the wife of Shem. And the other one would be the wife of Ham, which would be maybe this purple. See, I don't even know how these. I got to look at a chart to see how closely these are related, because it could be this U, but I'm just basically speculating right now. But this is what I don't. I have to study up more on this mtDNA chart. But you can see that the people spread out from the Middle East. They went either to Africa or Europe or Mongolia or the Americas and such, or even down here to the islands, which would be B. I don't know what that is, but anyways, and I have to study out, because this is a little bit more confusing than the Y chromosome. At least I haven't studied up on it yet. But you can see how they're all represented here in the Middle East, and they spread out from there. So this is showing that they're all from here. Okay, so the Y chromosome is similar. You got everyone represented in the Middle East. This is what I know more about. And they spread out from the Middle East. They went, the R1s went here. The Qs went to the Americas, the E's went to Africa. So you can guess who is who, basically. And you got the J1. This is not too clear because they got the J1 and the I1 mixed with the R's, which is not the same thing. So, and of course, you got the H's. So, with the other charts, I hope to explain which is which. Here's another map. This is the Y chromosome again. And we have here, this is a little bit more clear. We got the J1E, and it says Middle Eastern Semitic. And it is Semitic because that's the basically Jewish Y chromosome, which also is in Africa. And that's how they identified the Falashas, I guess it was, because they identified the Aaronic chromosome in the Falasha people. So that means the descendant of Moses' brother was in the Falasha people in Africa. So that's how they confirmed that the Falashas were Jewish, and they flew them out and they flew them to Israel because they were descendants of Moses' brother Aaron. So, and it proved it with DNA evidence. Okay, so this is where it's at. Most of Africa is E, and it goes A, B, C, D, E, and the C's actually are interesting because the C's didn't go to Africa. Of course, the A, B, C, D, and E are sons of Ham. They're Hamites, which are normally known or understood to be Africans, but they're not. They didn't all go to Africa. Some went to India, and some went to Australia and beyond. So the ones that went to Australia and beyond are the C's. You notice the C is not represented in Africa because it goes A, B, C, D, and E. These are all Hamites that went to Africa from, of course, the Middle East, from Turkey, where the ark landed. So, according to biblical history, right? So the biblical history is proved correct by the Y chromosome chart. Okay, that's interesting. Now, if you follow the C goes into a lot of places, among which is India, Australia, the Pacific Islands, the southern Pacific Islands mainly, and they went north too. They're highly represented in the north here, in Mongolia and such, and they went as far as America. So the C, descendant of Ham. Remember, Egypt was called Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim is one of the sons of Ham. And Mitzrayim started Egypt with his mother, whose name is Egyptus. So Mitzrayim is the founder of Egypt. He's one of the sons of Ham. And of course, these are all sons of Ham, basically, except for this RB, which I'll explain later. So, but the C is not represented here. The B is represented, the A, B, not the C. The D is, where's the D? Oh, there's D over here. D over here in like India and this part of Arabia. Okay, so what was interesting is that how the C went over in this area here, and you can actually sometimes see it in the islanders. You know, some of the islanders you can see the C represented, and of course in the Aborigines, the Australian Aborigines, you can see it, and of course in India, they found it in the DNA. Okay, and the C's went north, like to Mongolia. Of course, they don't look anymore like the other Africans because they're in a different area. They're mixing with different people. So the C's went. This is the Y chromosome. This is the male Y chromosome. Remember, it's the descendants of the male ancestor. But this is very interesting when people say that the people in America are African. But they're not exactly African, but they are descendants of Ham. And then you have the Q. The Q is on the other end of the spectrum. The Q is the male descendant. You got the Q1, the Q, we got Q2, we got Q3. But anyways, the Q is the other end of the spectrum. The Q is a Japhethite or Japhethite or whatever you want to say, which is also represented in Europe as well. Okay, so the division would be, well, let me go ahead and change the map because this is getting kind of confusing here. So here's the pie chart. The pie chart it goes horizontal here. A, B, C, D, E. Of course, you got a lot of E's. You got EX, E3B, E3B, and you got E2s and E1 or something, I don't know. And then you got F. The F, G, H, I, J, the F. Where's the F? Say A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Oh, yeah, the F is like a precursor. There's not very many people in the F. There's not many people represented in the F by the F. It's like a precursor or part of G, H, I, J, and J. And K seems to be a precursor. There's not many Ks either. Well, there's a lot of Ks here, it looks like. But I guess I was looking at the DNA test. But the K, that would be the descendants of the Japhethites. Looks like, because they went to Europe. Japhethites went to Europe, and of course Asia too. And so the K LMNOPQR are the Japhethites, and the FGHIJK are the Shemites. I mean FGHIJ. The K, I think, is the Japhethites. So that I happen to be. Where's my H? No, I'm not an H. I'm an I. So there's a G, H, I, and the J. The I and the J are closely associated. The J, of course, is largely the Jewish population. And to me, the I represents the population of Israel, the dispersion of Israel. That's just the way I see it. May or may not have anything to do, but that's the way it looks to me. But anyways, I happen to be an I. You can't see it very well here, but this is where the I comes from, where my Y chromosome came from, which of course went from Sweden, Finland, this area here. What is it? NW. What's NW here? Let's see. Get this right. Norwegian. Yeah, that's what it is. Norwegian area. Norway, Sweden, and I think Finland too. But they were basically the Vikings that went this way, and the Saxons, of course, too. The Saxons and the Vikings went into England. Of course, my IY chromosome is like in the Highlands from Scotland. Just happens to be. So, but this would be the Semitic Y chromosome. So, because the I and the J are closely associated, and the GHI is also Semitic. So we got the H here represented here. The G is represented here, and of course here. So this is Semitic, not necessarily Jewish, but it could be like Sumerian. So this large area of G would be like Sumerians, maybe. Of course, Abraham was a Sumerian. People probably don't know that. Most people probably don't know that Abraham was a Sumerian. He was born before Zeus. The Greek god Zeus was born. He's born like a couple hundred years before Zeus was born. And the biblical history, the biblical account is verified by this Y chromosome map here. Now this, let me see this Q. Here again, we have the Q represented with this purple or whatever it is. And this O is represented here. And the K, remember KLMNOP? That's all Japhethite seems to be. So the K, all this here. The C, the only thing that's different is the C. This is C, this is Hamite. It's all Hamite that didn't go to Africa. So I gotta see which son of Ham didn't go to Africa, and then I'll be able to say better which one it is. So just let's see if this other map will explain it more. This is the same thing, right? Okay, that's basically it, I guess. But you can see how everything is concentrated here in the Middle East, basically. Well, it looks like a lot's concentrated here, but it's concentrated here in the Middle East. And everybody went either this way or this way, different people. Some people went this way, some people went, this way. Some people went to Africa, some people went to Europe, some people went to Asia, and some people went to the Americas, all the way to Americas. And you can tell who went where by the Y chromosome that they have. And they're basically all the descendants of Shem, Ham, and Japheth that landed on the ark in Turkey, basically. So that's why you have a high concentration of all the people here, and they spread out from here. Of course, they spread out 100 years after the global flood, which is another thing I have to explain. When 100 years after the global flood, because people didn't start spreading out until 100 years after the global flood, when the continents were divided. When the earth was divided in the days of Peleg, and that's also when people were isolated into family groups and started speaking their own language, because the earth was broke apart, everyone isolated into their own family, and then they spread out. That's when they went and spread out like this all over the place. So you will notice that they didn't spread, because if the earth this if the earth broke apart during the flood, then let me see. Well, the people, it doesn't matter because people crossed over here, but the animals wouldn't have been able to get from Africa to South America. But they did get to South America. You have a lot of animals from this region that are here represented here, plus a whole bunch more that are unique to South America. And they all got, the only way they could get here, because they're South American animals, they don't go through freezing temperatures like some of the animals did. Like the lynx, a few animals like the lynx and stuff crossed over and stuff. But the South American animals are all unique. The camels, the South American camels or llamas are unique to South America. They got four-legged bunny rabbits that hop that are unique to South America. They got jaguars that got separated from the leopards that are unique to South America. They got um, greater grisons in South America that are unique to South America, which is basically the same thing as an African honey badger. But they got separated when the earth broke apart because the animals spread out before before the 100 years after the global flood. In other words, the animals had 100 years to get to South America before the earth broke apart, before the continents broke apart in the days of Peleg. So then in the days of Peleg, that's when the people started spreading out. And of course, they went this way to Africa, this way to Europe, this way to Mongolia, the Americas, and and of course the Pacific Islands here, all the way over here. Of course, this Y chromosome is highlighting the original people groups, not the people living here today, of course, because I live over here in America. But I came from over here with my Y chromosome, which was basically the Vikings and the Anglo-Saxons that invaded England and places in Scotland, Highlands and stuff. So that's about it. And I hope I didn't dox myself. If I did, well. But everybody is what they are. I mean, it'd be interesting if everybody did a DNA test, you know, because it just it's the DNA study is very interesting study. It can explain a lot how these people got here. A lot of these Indian tribes over here are partly Hamitic, which are relatives of the Africans. A lot of the people over here in the Pacific Islands are Hamitic. They're C too. Of course, these are C, and these over here are C, and these up here are C. So you can see exactly where everyone went, and you can actually see it in some of the features of the people. You can actually see some of the features in some ways. But of course, these were highly influenced by the people around that living in this area, which were Japhethites or Japhethites. And of course, Europeans are influenced, highly influenced by the Japhethites, the same people, the Japhethites that went to Europe and of course Asia too. And of course, the Europeans are a mixture of Israel, the lost tribes of Israel that went north all the way this way. And you can see that in the DNA because I'm one of them, which I have an IY chromosome from the Norwegian area, Norway, Sweden, which invaded by way of the Anglo-Saxons and the Vikings, invaded England. And that's how I got here. Because then I was one of the Scotch-Irish immigrants, of course. Well, actually, partly. But actually, yeah, that on my one side of the family, then the other side of the family is the Y chromosome. But anyway, it's an interesting study, though. Let me see. I'm kind of like lost here. I haven't been watching the thing here. Okay. So not too much discussion going on. Maybe that's a good thing because I wasn't paying attention. Well, just way of review, this is the Y chromosome. I mean, this is the mtDNA. This is the mitochondrial DNA passed down through the mothers, and it shows some some of them went this way to Africa, some of them went this way to Europe, some of them went this way to Asia. So that looks like this purple looks like I gotta study it more. I can't really say. I'll be guessing. But anyways, and some of them went as far as this way, and it looks like the women that went this way didn't go this way. Well, some of them did. The red did. The red bee did. So I have to find out what this is. I gotta study this mitochondrial DNA better because I don't know which is related to what in here where they have it. But it's interesting. They got the southern Pacific Islands are very similar to a lot of the people in the Americas, to some of the people in the Americas, of course. And it looks like they went by way of the Pacific Ocean, as a matter of fact, because it doesn't look like they went up through here. Of course, they got, yeah, it doesn't really look like they went through here. Looks like they went from here to here, basically, which is interesting, which I think was possible, rare but possible. Uh, but yeah, the study of the history of the Pacific Islanders and their travels over the Pacific Ocean is very, very interesting because I mean that's a long ways from here to here and here, and it looks to me like they made that trip, they made that voyage, and of course we got the C. Remember the CY chromosome went from here to here too, but that's I was thinking they came over the ice, but maybe they sailed from here. Maybe they sailed from here over to here. The descendants of Ham. I mean, the male descendants of Ham. But anyways, that's interesting. This is not any different than this chart here, I don't think. But this is a lot of interesting study of who went where, and of course, everybody's represented in this area here, basically. Greece and Turkey and these places here. This is basically the Middle East, right? And from here, from Turkey, in these parts, they went in every direction 100 years after the global flood, after the continents were divided or the earth was divided. Anyway, just wanted to highlight that. And basically, this proves the narrative that everyone evolved from Africans because the fact is that we're all brothers. This is the Y chromosome, it's the A, B, C, D, and E, which are the Hamites. Of course, the C went this way instead of this way to Africa. It went through India all the way to Australia, these southern Pacific islands, and then they also went to Mongolia, in this area. And looks like they went this way, but they're all closely related. And then the FGHIJ are all closely related too, and they seem to be the Shemites, or what we know as the Semites, which are the Sumerians and people like from Greece and a lot of people in Italy and Greece and stuff. These are largely Semitic peoples because that's basically where they are. Of course, this area here is highly Semitic too. Oh, I didn't go into, yeah, I knew I was forgetting something, but But yeah, there's more to this story too here, because of course we have the J1 and stuff. This is the Middle Eastern Semitic that is found in Africa, of course, and spread off in different places, and also the RB1, which is Japhethite, is found in Africa. So the male Y chromosome of Japhethites is found in Africa, in this section here. And of course, we find the RB1 up here in Europe, all throughout Europe, R1A, R1B, R1B. And apparently, they even found it as far as America somehow. So they got the R1B possibly, they think. Somehow there's some kind of influence that seems to be from the R instead of the Q, which the Q would be the people that migrated, but then there's the influence of the R, which could be, it's hard to say, but it could be, I guess it could be the people from Iceland or stuff like that. I forget the Iceland is a study too. I mean Greenland is Greenland, right? Yeah, the Greenland and the Iceland, that's a study in itself too, of the different people that are there. Because this map doesn't show very well, I don't think. Here, this ES is the says Eskimo, but it's basically the ES. It'll be the Q. Of course, they don't like being called Eskimos. They like being called Inuits, I think, which it's just semantics, but you know. Uh, so anyway, yeah, there was something about the Iceland I was seeing in another map too, which I can't seem to see here. Oh, it's largely it's A, which I don't know. Yeah, we got. Well, this is interesting. Anyway, a lot of different people, but the point being that it seems to show to me that everyone is represented in this area, and they spread out from here to different areas. We didn't come from here. We didn't originate from this area where they said everybody originated from the or evolved from the Africans. That doesn't sound too nice, because we're all brothers. We're all from the same three brothers and their three wives, which are different. Oh yeah, there's also the study of the Neanderthals too, the Neanderthals and the Denisovans, which would be, well, represented in the mostly the Japhethites. So so the Japhethites have Neanderthal DNA, and of course that also extends to Europe, because a lot of Europeans are Japhethites, because the Japhethites, according to the Bible, went north. So so that's why the Europeans have Neanderthal DNA, and the Asians have most of the Neanderthal DNA, because they are all descended from the wife of Japheth, who was probably the one that carried the Neanderthal DNA, the wife of Japheth. And then there's the Denisovan, which I don't think they're sure what it is, but they seem to think that the Neanderthals were separated and then rejoined the population at some date in here. But what really happened was that one of the wives of one of the sons of Noah had Neanderthal DNA and carried it to the Japhethites, which would be the Asians and the Europeans, which is what is shown today. And it so happens that the Neanderthal Y chromosome is non existent today, it's extinct. So it's very likely, possible, and probable that the Neanderthals and the Denisovans died in the global flood, didn't make it through the global flood. And they only made it by way of one of the wives of one of the sons of Noah, which is probably the Japhethite wife, the wife of Japheth, which is how we got the Neanderthal DNA, and which is why the Europeans have Neanderthal DNA, because the Japhethites went north, which extends to Europe, east to Europe, west to Europe, and east to the east. So that's that. And it more proof of the biblical narrative, the actual historical narrative is proved to be true once again, once more. Of course, this is a mtDNA and the Y chromosome, sure. But I like to study. I think it's pretty neat. And I'm going to study it some more so I can get some more accurate information. Of course, let me see. This is the Y. I got D. I got D spread out all over the place. No, this is not this. This is not the right D. This is not the right color. This is the R1. So this yellow up here is the R1A. So this yellow would be the Japhethite. Now we got this right here. This is interesting. This is D. This TB is D. So the TB would be, if I can find it, TB, where's the TB? Oh, Tibet. Oh, that's interesting. So the Tibetans have the Y chromosome of a Hamite. That's interesting. And of course, it's the same color Hamite down here and up over here in Japan. So we got Hamite in Japan too. We got Hamite DNA in Japan, and we got Hamite DNA in Tibet, and of course down here too, and over here. This is of course the Y chromosome of one of the sons of Ham, which is very interesting. So not only do we have the C's over here in the Pacific Islands and up here in Mongolia, we got the D, which is Tibet and Japan. So the D's went as far as Japan, which is very interesting. Of course, the C's went as far as America, North America, and that'd be Greenland, I think. So Greenland has a little bit of C. The Americas have a little bit of C. Alaska has a big chunk of C. as well as Mongolia in this area here, and the Pacific Islands, and Australia, and New Zealand. New Zealand, of course, too. New Zealand had a population of Hamites, or largely Hamites, with the O. The O is a mixture of Japhethites. Of course, so it'd be Japhethite, and Hamite. This is the population, the percentage of the population that has the Y chromosome. And the K, I believe, is Japhethite. If it's not Japhethite, it would still be Semitic, but I'm not sure about that. I don't think it's Semitic, even though it could be. You got K up here. But anyways, and of course here in the CN, which would be, what is it, Congo? We have the B, which is the R1, like we saw in the other map. So anyway, looks interesting to me. And it proves to me that the biblical narrative is right, the actual historical narrative, not the guessing, and not the racist narrative that we evolved from Africans. We didn't evolve from Africans. They're our brothers. They moved from the Middle East to Africa, while the rest of us moved in other directions or stayed in the same area as Turkey and Greece and Italy and those places. But anyways, it's a neat study. Oh, and the whole time I'm looking at these charts, and I'm not even showing the charts, I guess. Oh well. So, but that was interesting. This is what I was trying to say, that we got the Japan, the Tibets, and Japanese are D, which are the sons of Hamite, just like the C over here is from Australia and New Zealand and the southern Pacific Islands. And I think even the other islands are influenced too. Anyways, that's what I was trying to say. So we got in Africa, you got the A, B, and the E represented in Africa, which are the descendants of Ham. Plus, you have the D, the C, and the D, which went the other direction, probably went south and then east. And they show up here in Japan, Tibet, and also the C shows up in Mongolia and shows up in, of course, Australia and New Zealand, and the islanders, Pacific Islanders. Of course, this large blue here is Japheth. It would be Japhethites, which also seem to have the Neanderthal DNA, I think. But anyway, that's enough for that, I guess. I'll have to study it some more. I have to study the relationships of the mtDNA and how they connect. I got to look at more charts to see how they line up. So anyway, that's good enough, I guess. And the point being that genetics confirms what the Bible says. Because the Bible is not a prediction, it's a historical record. It's different. It's an observation, which is very, very different than a prediction. An observation is what is, you know. So, and we have observations. We don't have guesses. And we don't have fantasies, you know. We don't believe in magic. We believe that everything is has a factual basis or evidential basis or observational basis. That's why we believe the truth and we tell the truth, that we have a maker and that only your maker can be your savior. He's the only one that can cover for you himself and remake you again from the inside out by the power of his spirit, his true word, which renews us, washes us, and cleanses us from all unrighteousness.